Hi, it's the middle of March, so it's time to talk about the 8 books that I've read so far. I haven't got a single physical book to show you because I've read library books for the Yoto Carnegie. I've read ARCs, so I haven't got anything physical to show you, so you'll just have to look at the little pictures over here. The first one I read is one that comes out well, it actually came out on the 5th of March, so it's out now. It's Say Hello to My Little Friend by Jennine Capó Crochet. And it's one where the opening chapter really got to me because it's in the voice of Lolita, an orca who's in the Seaquarium in Miami. And the first chapter, it's telling, sort of almost telling her story. And it really got to me. The story revolves around Izzy, who wanted to be a pit bull, who's a rapper, impersonator, but all sorts of legal things stopped him. So then he's decided that he's going to model himself on Tony Montana from Scarface. And you don't need to have seen the film to understand the story. I hadn't seen the film, so it didn't make any difference at all. And after a visit to the aquarium, there's sort of almost a connection between him and Lolita. And it's the story, I've just lost my place now. It's the story of their connection, and also because Izzy arrived in America from Cuba on a raft. He wants to find out more about that story, about his story, and he starts asking questions of the wrong people. And he begins to think that the story he found out, the story he was always told, wasn't the true story, and he learns what's important. And it's a story that took me to some very surprising places I didn't think I would ever go in a story. Then I read one from the Yoto Carnegie list because I'm aiming to read all 16 on the long list. And this was A Way with Words by Sophie Cameron. Now this one, it's a super novel about friendship, and it's got magical realism. Imagine a world where every time you speak, the words appear visually. Different colours for different emotions, and like we've all got individual fingerprints, everybody's words have a different and individual shape. So, you'd be able to distinguish a word I spoke from a word somebody else spoke because they'd be different shapes, sort of thing. And they're all different colours, and every time you speak, they fall on the floor and they get swept away or blown away on the wind. So you imagine that sort of world. And our main character is Gala. She's 11 and she's moved from Catalonia in Spain to Scotland with her father so he could set up home with his partner and his partner Ryan. And from being a girl who is really, really talkative, she's now a girl who finds it difficult to understand anybody and to be understood because of the language barrier. And I found it a super way, the way that the author used to sort of show the language difficulties that she had, is that she would, in the book, she does the sentences and only the words that Gala understands. The rest of the words she doesn't understand are lots of squiggles. So you have lots of disjointed sentences, which illustrates the understanding that Gala has. And then she meets Natalie, who's a selective mute, and these two girls develop a bond. And it's all to do with communication. And it's a lovely story. It's a perfect book to promote a conversation about friendship and not being able to communicate. Then another one from the Yoto Carnegie list was Digging for Fct Tre by Cathy Faulkner. And this one is a verse novel. And if you follow my channel, you know I like verse novels. And it's the use of language, the concise use of language and the creative use of form and this is why I love these books. It takes place in World War II. 12-year-old Bonnie is desperate to be a hero like her brother Ralph, who's gone off to be a Spitfire pilot. And a stranger is billeted into their small village home, a Mr. Fisher, and she has conflicting feelings about this very, very quiet man. Why is he in her house and not fighting like her brother? And at school, she becomes the butt of everybody's jokes because, as far as they're concerned, she's got a shirker, a chicken, living in her house. And it's the relationship between Mr. Fisher and Bonnie that gradually evolves, and she gets curious about him, wants to find out exactly what he's doing, why he's disappearing every night. And when she does find out what she's doing, it's very surprising results, and she finds out that, you know, not all heroes need medals. It's sometimes the quiet heroes are just as important as those that are praised publicly. Super book. And it could, if it was read in a school environment, it could be the linchpin of so many school projects. Then I read the first one on the Women's Prize for Fiction. Again, I got this one from the library. Enter Ghost by Isabella Hammad. And it explores the nuances of a Palestinian identity and the life of people living in that area and the different rights and freedoms they have to navigate, checkpoints, a checkpoint every time they go anywhere, and a permit for this, a permit for that. And our narrator, Sonia, is a British Palestinian, an actress who's never really made it in England, and she goes to stay with her sister who's teaching in another Israeli university, and mainly to get away from an affair she's had with a married director. And while she's there, she joins a theatre group to play Gertrude because Mariam is wanting to put on Hamlet in the West Bank. And I like the way that the author used prose, Sonia's first person, and then would switch every now and again to play script. So you would have Sonia's perspective and then you would watch Sonia, you know, that type of thing. And the idea of the different dynamics between the theatre group and the idea of playing Hamlet in a place like the West Bank, and all the different nuances with the play itself. So many layers in that, and I really enjoyed that. A really impressive novel, that one. Then I moved on to Percival Everett's new one, which comes out on the 11th of April, and it's James, and it's almost a retelling of the adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and you are now with Jim, the slave from Huckleberry Finn. And whereas he was very much a secondary character in the Huck Finn book, now he's the main character. And here he is the main voice, and he has a voice that is wise, intellectual. He reads, he writes, he has philosophical dreams about John, where he's discussing things with John Locke. He looks out for his wife and daughter, and he's compassion for those around him. And it opens with him waiting on Miss Watson's step for some cornbread, and we have him talking in slave language to Miss Watson because that's what is expected. Then he goes home and his language switches, and there is some humour in there when he's teaching the children how to speak slave. But when he finds that he's going to be sold, then he runs away, and Hug joins him because he's running away from his abusive father. And whereas the beginning of the book you can follow what happened in the original Huck Finn book, then it deviates, and the author doesn't pull any punches. It is harrowing at times. There's graphic scenes of violence, and it's a very different and more treacherous path, and the ending, wow. There we go. Then I read another arc, and this comes out again on the 11th of March. Sorry, 11th of April, and it's Lionel Shriver's new one, Mania. And this is a book that really makes you think. It's sort of like an alternative history, and it picks up on issues almost that we've got today with cancel culture, because at this time we've got mental parity where everybody is equal. You're not allowed to use the words dumb or stupid or thick. There's no exams because everybody's equal. Employers can't ask for qualifications because everybody's equal. And our main character, Pearson, she disagrees. She disapproves with this, and she's quite vociferous in her own home. But her best friend, Emery, she's CNN's spokesperson for mental parity. So you've got the conflict between those two. And it's an interesting read and sort of very thought-provoking. Then I moved on to another from the Carnegie, and this is a super novel, The Song Walker by Zillah Bethell. And it's set in the Australian outback, and it's full of friendship and ancient beliefs. It starts with a young girl awakening in the outback, dressed in a black dress, totally unsuitable for the environment. She's got one shoe and she's carrying a silver case, and she doesn't know where she is. She doesn't even know who she is. And then she collapses and is found by Tanya, who's a First Nation young girl who is crossing the outback looking for her sister. And it's the relationship between these two as they follow the dreaming tracks, these pathways that are in song that are passed from generation to generation to generation. And it's a story of friendship, it's a story of self-discovery, about culture and landscape, and I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And then the final one I read was The Swifts by Beth Lincoln, again on the Carnegie list. And in the Swift family, on the day they are born, they are presented to the matriarch. Finger is placed in the dictionary, and that is their name, and they're expected to live up to their name. So if your name is atrocious, you will be atrocious. Our main character, Shenanigan, she believes she can be whatever she wants to be and doesn't believe she has to live up to her name. At a family gathering, the matriarch, Great Arch Aunt Schadenfreude, an attempt is made on her life, and Shenanigan decides she's going to find the culprit. But the case gets trickier because not only are there more murders, but this hidden treasure. I found that with so many characters, I found it difficult to drill down and really engage with them. And the frantic pace, a middle grader will absolutely love that, the frantic pace. It didn't really do it for me, but then I'm not the age group it's aimed at. So those are the 8 books that I read for this first half, and my favourite by far is The Song Walker. I just loved the landscape descriptions of the Australian outback. I loved the culture that came through, the friendship between these two girls, and the story. I just thought it was absolutely magical. So that is my book of the first half of the month. So that's it. Happy reading. Take care.